Alright, hello and welcome back to Gran Turismo Sport. Today we're taking part in the FIA Gran Turismo Championships Nations Cup at the Circuit de la Sarthe, which for those of you who don't know is the track that is famous for hosting the 24 hours of Le Mans. Here we are in qualifying, trying to set a good qualifying time, but as you can see it's not off to a good start. We've already got half a second penalty. And, you know, last week there was the daily race at Interlagos, and I was driving the Lamborghini Huracan, which just slides all over the place, and just did not have a good week on that track. Tanked my driver rating a little bit, so psychologically I'm starting off kind of on the back foot as I come into this race. Now I'm a little better at this circuit, but as you can see I'm just making mistakes all over qualifying. I served my penalty there and then just carried too much speed here, take too much of that curve, and just spin out. It was just my own stupid little mistake. I had no one else to blame for that. But completely ruins my qualifying. And we crossed the line and set not a good qualifying time at all. What do we end up on P16, the 3:36. So a bad week at Interlagos threatens to continue into the Circuit de la Sarthe, but we'll see what we can do in the race. So we're going to start P16 on the grid. Right near the back, I believe there are 19 drivers in this race. And if we watch this entire lineup, it's going to take a really long time. So we're just going to go ahead and skip to the back. No, almost there. There we are, P16. There we are. See, 7-second gap to pole position. If we hadn't spun out at that last turn, we would have been a lot closer to pole position, possibly even had pole position, but nevertheless, we'll be starting this race from pretty much the back of the grid. Michelin Man there up top, looking really intimidating, saying you better not jump start, and we'll definitely try not to jump start. Here I am, as you can see, kind of nervous about the race, and 3 lights, 4 lights, 5 lights, and it's lights out, and away we go at the Circuit de la Sarthe. Getting kind of a good start, just give this guy a little bit of a punt from the beginning, help him out a little bit, but we move up already into P11. I gotta be really careful around here. Ooh, it's just absolute carnage. Carefully negotiating these turns and people spinning out, ghosting out, and somehow, a little bit of oversteer there, but we find ourselves in P7, from P16 up into P7. We have classy driver 06 in front of us in the same car that we're in. The hope here is that we'll get a good run onto the Mosan straight coming up in just a little bit, and we can swing on by. We do get a pretty good run, so here we are passing a classy driver. Goodbye. And as you can see, I actually completely forgot to turn on my radar. I still had it set to the lap timings for qualifying, but there we are, finally turning it back onto the radar. Coming onto the back of Slug's line here, swinging out to the right-hand side. See if we can go into this first chicane here, and just don't want to make a move here. Don't really want to take everyone out on the first lap, but it seems like everyone around us has actually got penalties, which will definitely play into our hands later on in the race. Tucking right back into the slipstream again. He tries to move right. I follow him. And finally, we're going to probably make this move stick on this upcoming chicane. We are well past him. Moving to the right-hand side now to get a good turn in on this chicane. And just look at the radar here, because, ooh, classy driver decides to completely make his own track.
Cut the chicken.
He absolutely did cut the chicken. as we move past him and Guy Ferrari, who spun now up into P4. Classy driver 06 proving that he may not actually be that classy of a driver. Coming up into Mosian corner then. Very, very heavy braking zone. We've got some pressure from behind from Slug Slime. And we just missed the apex and go in just a little bit too deep and wheel spin for days on the exit of that corner as we get passed by Slug Slime. Yeah, that's something we're going to have to think about and try not to repeat on the next lap. The first lap is always usually just kind of figuring out the mistakes that you make and trying not to make them again on the second lap. We get past Slug Slime again thanks to the slipstream and just barely keep it in control over there as we make it into Indianapolis. You see, the guys ahead have actually got penalties, so we've actually kept our race penalty free so far. Makes it easier for us to catch up with the guys in front. Yeah, so there's all the penalties behind me. As you can see, there's Classy Classy Driver with his 7-second penalty for cutting that chicane. Hopefully that'll put some distance between us and the people following us, give us some breathing room as we make our way now into the Porsche curves. I love these curves, they're so much fun to do, but you really just gotta make sure you keep it within the white lines, especially here on the exit, otherwise you will pick up another penalty. Coming into the back of Sleepy now as he serves his penalty off the racing line, thank you very much. Now coming into the forward chicanes, negotiating these last couple of chicanes as we are about to complete our lap. And RP Curry, the Canadian, sets the fastest lap, a 3:31.5. Let's see if we can beat that now as I walk you through one lap of the Circuit de la Sarthe. Coming up now into Dunlop Curve, coming towards the right there, braking right before the first total board, taking some of these curves. Be careful not to take too much of them, and especially here on the exit too, otherwise you'll pick up a penalty. Staying in fourth gear here, don't shift up, shift down actually one as we make our way to the left hand side of the track. Don't touch too much of that curve on the right hand side, otherwise that might throw your car off balance. Just a hint of braking here, really attack this apex. Don't run too wide onto the curb over there, otherwise you may pick up another penalty. And hopefully that'll give you a good run onto the Mosian straight. This is a really, really long straightaway along the back of the track. If you've seen the latest, the Ford v Ferrari movie, otherwise known as Le Mans 66 if you are European, this is the straight that Ken Miles, played by Christian Bale, was absolutely bored driving down, braking here right next to those marshals. Yeah, he was absolutely bored coming down the straight because he was so much further down, so much farther ahead than his rivals. So that's the first chicane negotiated. We're going to slowly bring our way to the right-hand side now as we prepare for the following left-right chicane. We're going to be braking just a tad before the 100-meter board, which is coming up just after these sets of trees over here. Just clipping the inside curb just a little bit of gas, but not too much as we make our way around the chicane. Being really careful with the throttle because we don't want to send too much power to the rear wheels and just spin us out. And now finally onto this last portion of the Mosian straight. Like I said, a really, really long straight. Imagine driving down this back in the old days with no chicanes. This is a really heavy braking zone, braking right before the kink in the road. We missed the apex last lap, so let's try to really attack it this time. There we go, and coming out towards the left. Slowly back onto the power as we don't want to get that wheel spin we had on the last lap. Also, a lot of people spin out here. So you got to be really, really careful with that throttle application. And now we're coming down onto another straight, making our way towards Indianapolis as we pass under the Toyota Hybrid sign. Thank you very much. Now this corner here, you just have a slight hint of a lift, but then quick on the brakes because you don't want to overshoot this turn over here. Don't go too far right, you're going to end up in that gravel trap. And braking just after that orange marshal on the left. Now the exit of this turn is extremely slippery. I don't know why it's so slippery, but you just gotta be really, really careful on the gas so you don't spin out. I've seen a lot of people who have been in the lead and they just spun out on that corner, so you gotta be really, really careful. Coming into the Porsche curves now, there's gonna be some green paint on the left, just a dab on the brakes right as you pass those down 2 gears. A lot of throttle control as you come around these curves. Up 1 gear here. And either a lift or just a tiny bit of brake here as you go down a gear again into 4th. being really careful, really turning into this apex here so you don't go wide on the exit. If you do, you risk picking up a penalty. Coming into the forward chicanes now, we're going to come all the way to the right and brake right as this white line divides into two. Take a healthy amount of curb on both ends here and then just slow down slightly. Taking, again, some curb. Be really careful with this left curb. It's kind of slippery. And be really careful on throttle application because you don't want to spin out into that gravel trap. And that is the fastest lap, 3:27.5. As we hit the nitrous now, I know a lot of people think there's no NOS in this game, but there is. But apparently once you hit it, all your rivals get it too. So really it's not that useful. Now, one thing that we haven't talked about yet is the tire strategy for this race. Normally I like doing medium to mediums, pitting either at the end of lap 3 or at the end of lap 4. You could go from beginning to end on the same set of mediums, but you know, that just means you're going to be losing time on the corners as you slide around. It's got a lot of long straights, this track, so your tire wear won't really hamper you on these straights, but you'll definitely lose time in the corners. So now I'm just looking at these guys up front. They're kind of fighting each other for position, which slows them down and helps me reel them in. I don't know if you saw just previously they had some penalties, which they're about to serve right now as they cross the penalty line. And I'm just kind of deciding, should I come in at the end of this lap or stay out, come in at the end of next lap for my tire change. Looking ahead, I can see them, yeah, they don't take the pit entries, so we're going to stay out for another lap. The mediums really only last for 4 laps, I would say, for their optimal usage. Anywhere past that and you're going to really start sliding all over the place. So now hitting the NOS once again. We saw on the left there on the player tracker that King Lawrence has gone in for his pit stop. He's put on the softs, which, you know, at this point in the race, that means he's going to do 4 laps on the softs, which I don't think, personally I wouldn't do that. The softs don't last long enough, I think, for 4 laps. They last pretty good for 2 laps. You can do 3 laps if you really want to. You gotta be really careful on the tires. But now coming once again into Indianapolis, we see the guys ahead actually are tussling together, and we're a lot closer to them now than we were on the previous lap, and they're definitely tussling, and yellow flag. And RP Curry, the Canadian, has just completely spun out. I said before that this section of the track was really slippery. There we go. RP Curry spun, RIP Curry. That promotes us up into P2. And now if you look at the tire life graphic at the bottom left, you can see we've definitely been abusing these tires. And this is when I would want to come in to switch my tires out for a new set of mediums. Negotiating now these Porsche curves. Pedro Univas in front of us has a penalty, so he's going to serve his penalty right before the pit entry. And I think we're going to go in the pits, but we're actually gaining really fast on him, so no, we're going to stay out. I'm thinking if we can just tuck in behind his slipstream, we can actually get by him on these old tires. And I am worried about RIP Curry from behind. If he pits now onto newer tires, he will have a tire advantage over me and Pedro, and should be able to overtake us, but no, he does not go in the pits, so top 3 leaders all staying out on relatively old tires now. And you can see as I made my way through that Dunlop chicane just how wide I was going. These tires are not offering me any more grip, just sliding all over the place, having to take these corners just slightly slower because I'm just going wide, there's no grip in the tires. Really starting to rethink my tire strategy here. Yeah, we made that corner, but definitely had to take it a little bit slower. And now back onto the Mulsanne straight here. Luckily for us, our tire wear doesn't matter quite as much on these straights. Pedro is just up in front. We are gaining on him, just catching really the tail end of his slipstream. I think he's trying to break the toe going over to the right. We're going to stay right behind him, braking as late as we dare. We are gaining time, I think, through the corners. We are better on the brakes than Pedro. But I can feel that the tires are definitely struggling. And it's probably also a struggle for Pedro up in front. Tucked back into the slipstream, 1.2 seconds ahead. RP Curry, 5.5 seconds behind us, so we don't have to worry about him for the time being. Coming out now sub 1 second to the car in front. Better on the brakes again. Coming into the last of the chicanes down the Mosan Straight. Now the thing about this car that we're driving right now is it doesn't have the highest top speed. Ooh, and half a second penalty for the guy in front. So we really have to make sure to tuck into the slipstream up in front if we want any chance of catching up. And I'm also worried about RP Curry behind us. This Alpine is pretty fast in a straight line. Coming now into the Mosan corner. He goes quite wide. Actually, I do too. Lots of wheel spin on exit. I'm really not doing my tires any favors. But yeah, looking at this race as a whole, we're definitely in position to get a really, really good finish. I think podium definitely. We could possibly also win this race, which would be a really nice comeback from, like I said, the last week, just getting hammered at Interlagos. He goes really, really wide. I try not to force the move because I don't want to take us both out. He has a penalty anyway, we can get by him then. But he goes wide here again, so we'll just take P1 from him. Thank you. That's us into the lead, finally, of this race. On to now the last big straight before the curves that will end this lap. And he's actually coming back really strongly, you can see on the radar. Is he going to make a big boy move down the inside into the Porsche curves? No, he backs out just at the last second. I outbrake him, but I left him a little bit of room in case he decided to dive bomb. Coming into these curves now, you can see tires are really struggling, having to take these corners really slowly. They're just crying out for help now. Taking this super slowly, he comes down the inside and gets by me. I need to pit. I definitely need to pit.
Bono, I can't look after this tires anymore, they're dead.
In we go, and we're actually followed by Pedro into the pit lane, sliding on entry. And since we've left our pit stop this late, we can put on the softs now. We will only have to do 2 laps on the soft tires. That's definitely doable. The world record for fastest pit stop time, I believe, is Red Bull F1 team with a 1.9 second pit stop. These guys definitely did not do that, unfortunately. But out we come, coming out just behind RP Curry. So he decided not to pit. He's going to go to the end on his tires. And as you can see on the radar, Pedro is just all over me. Oh, wow. Tires are still slightly cold. But yeah, definitely is a 3-person race for the win. Or really, kind of only a 2-person race if you think about RP Curry ahead on the old tires. He's not going to have too much. Look how much wider he goes. He's going to have a lot of trouble keeping the soft boys behind him. As we come now onto the Mosan Straight, RP Curry may actually still have a little bit of an advantage on the straights. His Alpine is really, really fast in a straight line. But I reckon we'll catch up with him on the corners. His tires are, what, six laps old by now. Let's go into the first chicane. Yeah, as you can see, look how much closer we are now. Coming out of that chicane, we are now definitely within towing distance. And we've got one more chicane coming up. So let's really try to get onto the back of him as we come into this chicane. Maybe even slingshot by him. Slightly worried about Pedro behind us because he's on the same tires as we are. Just look how much more grip I have compared to RP Curry. We're going to go down the right side, but he seems to be cutting us off, so we're going to go over to the left. We don't actually get by him just yet. Tucked now into the toe behind him, and look, even with the toe, look, he is still pulling away. That's how much faster his car is on the straights compared to us. Coming up into this big braking zone now. Can we get by him? We'll see. We're going to have a way more grip than he does, and he just kind of cuts off our pass, unfortunately. It's just good defending. But we'll come around the outside. We do get a better exit, and we swing on by him. Up once again into the lead, but look at the radar. He's tucked in behind the toe, and he's got the faster car, so he's going to swing right by again. Take the lead from us. Fair play. We'll tuck back into his toe. When we come into the later portions of the lap, there's no way he can stay in front of us because so many turns there. His tires won't be able to cope. And just look at how much that back end is sliding, shaking more than Shakira's hips. Coming now into Arnage with a penalty for ignoring the track limits. Going around the outside, and yeah, he just doesn't have enough grip. We get right by him pretty easily. There's a little tussle behind as Pedro gets by him as well. But now we have this half a second penalty we have to deal with, which will bring Pedro right onto the back of us. It's definitely going to be a defensive game as RP Curry completely forgets how to use his brake. RIP Curry once again. But yeah, coming into the last lap of the race, and it's definitely going to be a defensive lap. Going to have to keep Pedro behind us. Coming out of the Porsche curves for the second to last time. Going to have to serve my penalty here. Managed to stay in front of Pedro, but look at that. He's just right behind me. And he's proven himself to be a pretty fast guy around this track, so definitely going to have to keep one eye in front on the track and one eye behind at all times. I wanted to show the replay camera just to show how close we are coming into the Dunlop chicane, but also because of how beautiful the replay camera in this game is. And as we say that, we switched back onto the onboard camera. 4/10 of a second separating me from Pedro behind. Make that 2/10 of a second, keeping half an eye on the radar as we actually set a purple sector. Our fastest lap was stolen from us a couple laps ago by Pedro. Let's see if we can get that back. He's run wide on the exit to the straight, so now he's got a 1.5 second penalty. You know, that feels good. 1.5 seconds is quite a bit of time, and if I can stay penalty free, this could be a race win. But I don't want to talk like that because, you know, oftentimes I'll be thinking those things to myself and I end up making a big mistake or spinning out or doing something stupid, another purple sector, and yeah, doing something stupid and handing the win over to someone else. So we'll just try to be really careful. We're trying to break the toe slightly, you can see, when I was kind of swerving to the left and right over there, just messing with his mind a little bit, maybe getting frustrated, maybe getting him to make a couple more mistakes. Coming into the last chicane on the Mulsanne straight, taking it pretty well. He is still half a second behind us. Actually, no. He's now almost a second behind us. We took that a lot better than he did. Another purple sector. And he's still got that 1.5 second penalty to worry about. On the right side here, trying to break the toe. He follows us over. It's not going to happen. Heavy braking here for the last time. Just slightly missing that apex, but not too bad. Be careful on the power here. And he actually loses control for a second. That's what I want to see. If I can just keep my race penalty-free, mistake-free, and he keeps making mistakes, then this race could be in the bag. We've only got a couple more corners to negotiate before the end of the race. It's felt like a really long race, which it has been, but just, you know, when you're actually playing it and your heart's beating and you're sweating and you're trying not to make a mistake and you're focused, it just feels like forever. Another purple sector there. We could actually regain fastest lap, and he just completely goes off. Absolutely bins it. Lots of people this race completely forgetting where their brake pedal is. Classy person or classy driver, and then RIP Curry, and now Pedro. Or maybe remember how in Star Wars Saboba completely sabotages all of his rivals, their pod racers. Maybe we got some brake sabotage going on here. Another purple sector, I think definitely in line to get fastest lap back again. Negotiating the Porsche curves for the final time. I'm sorry, tires. It'll all be over really soon. Pedro definitely nowhere to be seen in our rear view, and he still has to serve his penalty. Coming out for the final time into the forward chicanes. Trying to be a little more careful now just because I know I probably have this win. I don't want to spin out here onto the last straight. And here we are, across the line, P1. We went from horrible qualifying, P16 to P1. And Pedro finishing 7.5 seconds behind us. RP Curry, 28 seconds. That felt good. That felt really good. Coming off of a horrible week at Interlagos, this win felt really good. Especially just, you know, coming from the back, fighting from the back, and mostly clean racing all around. So, you know, nothing to be frustrated about. It's all just good feelings here. That felt good.